Extraction.
Hi, I'm Zoe Starr and welcome to my show, Paranormal Extraction. Guess what? Today we have Jock Brokus once again. Okay, I already did a video with him, actually an interview, on Deadly Departed, the do's and don'ts and dangers of the afterlife communication. Now that was so awesome, and of course, he's agreed to be my mentor, right? It's the truth. It is the truth. I'm making him do it. So today we're going to be talking about the powers of the sixth sense. This is his first book that he put out, and Deadly Departed is his second book. He's busy up to 3 years, so I'm really lucky that I was even able to get this interview, and I'm very grateful to him. But I want to talk about this book today too, because this is very, very good. I'm going to ask you one question. Do you want to be mindful or do you want to be mindless? That's what this book to me means. So Jock, here we go. You're going to tell us all about it. First of all, why don't you tell everyone, I mean, like, what's going on? I mean, you've got so much stuff, who you are a little bit, what you are. I mean, you're famous.
Infamous, not famous. Not famous. I've always got a lot going on. I think it's it's a pleasure to be on your show again. It's always a pleasure to hear from you and talk to you, and I love how you're very passionate about what you do and how you serve people. So yeah, I've got a lot going on. I always, between writing articles and I'm writing a new book. I'm writing my 5th book at the moment as well. I've actually written 4 books. And this book was my very first foray into becoming a published author, and I was very lucky that it went into many different languages and went all over the world, and it's helped a lot of people. But I think from what I've got going on now is since COVID has changed a lot of the world, I think we're getting back to some form of normality. 2022, 23, 24, I will be back out and teaching and doing retreats and spiritual workshops and things like that again. So I'm really looking forward to that coming off. But it's always a pleasure to speak to you, because I know you've got so many things that you want to learn and so many things that you want to talk about as well. So it's great to link in with you again.
Yeah, I know. Well, I really appreciate it. And you know how I get so excited, and we always talk before, and I just...
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like I'm a little kid and I can't get enough. Okay, what about this? But about the book, okay? I call it being, do you want it? Another word would be conscious or unconscious. And I found this book really interesting because the title threw me off a little bit. I thought, oh, okay, well, this is going to be, a spiritual book, okay, and I'm going to learn about my sixth sense here. And so I started reading about it, and I was like, I wrote, wait 1 second, life as a ninja. Now, I was like set back a little bit by you being a bodyguard, okay? Yeah. I mean, I want to talk about, and then you do all these martial arts.
Yeah.
And so then you became a bodyguard, and not just a bodyguard at just some, bar. You did some really big stuff as a bodyguard.
I was very lucky that I had my first taste of working with close protection units when I was in the military. I got chosen to work with an organisation that was looking after the Queen Mother when she came down to Kent and stuff. And so we got involved in a lot of the security protocols and things like that. And that gave me the taste for it. And then when I came out of the military, it tends to, you don't know what you're going to do with your life. You're not kind of sure how you're going to go or where you're going to go. And so it seemed like a natural progression, because a lot of other people were kind of jumping into this whole idea of you either be a security guard or you do something a bit different. And I kind of got into the close protection world because I had a deep passion for the martial arts. I'd studied martial arts ever since I was a young kid. And then I started working on protection details and everything from VIP diplomats that were coming from different countries, or businessmen, and even at one point we looked after a woman who was under threat from a rapist and stuff like that. So different things. And then I worked with oil companies and teaching them how to utilize their sixth sense, and so all of that was just a culmination of learning basics of protection in the material world.
Right. Now,
but then,
didn't you do for the oil company? Maybe I'm wrong. Like a seminar or a workshop for them.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, actually,
okay,
yeah.
So see, I know what I'm talking about here. All right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I taught seminars to oil companies and within that industry on how to use intuition and self-defense and the sixth sense, and how to utilize their natural inbuilt intuition, gut instinct, whatever you want to call it, psychic ability to keep them safe. And that's where it was a different type of book when I wrote Powers of the Sixth Sense. Yes, it had a spiritual underlying feel to it, but it was more about practically using your psychic abilities that every single person in the world has to be able to protect yourself from harm in life. And so I didn't want to write how to understand your chakras or how to do work with psychic tools. I wanted to write something that really, really helped people to understand how they can utilize their intuition to save their life. And it has done in many occasions for many people, from soldiers to cops, to women, who are working in the workplace, executives. We tend to, or a lot of people tend to forget that they have an inner compass. And there's a lot of people learning about, learn how to use your intuition and learn this and to help you in business and things like that. What about using your inbuilt psychic abilities to keep you alive? And it just so happened that I wrote the book after 9/11, and God bless everybody who lost in 9/11.
Yeah.
And that's why I wrote the book. I wrote the book based on what happened in 9/11.
Right. Now, you talk about a lot in here. I want to know, I'm just going to bring this up. How do you make a person to handcuffs?
That was really funny, because when I was doing that demonstration, we did the demonstration, and this woman's bag was really expensive. And I didn't know the difference between a Donna Karan to a Louis Vuitton. At the end of the day, it was a bag.
Yeah.
And so what I would do is teach the women how they could utilize, as part of their intuition, part of that training is how they could utilize everyday objects that they would have to protect themselves if they need to, and how they can utilize the handle.
Yes.
To basically set up. But when I taught that in the seminar, I basically broke the handle of the woman's bag, and I didn't realize that it was Zoe, it was a really expensive handbag.
Oh my God. Yeah, and then you talked about you could use a pen.
Anything.
A pen, and then there was you could put the sugar cubes.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything. You can use literally anything as a weapon.
Right, as a weapon. Now,
but your greatest weapon, in actual fact, is your mind.
Yes, it is. Now, you really get into, in this book, it's kind of scary about what's going to put you in harm's way. Now, we're talking about reality here. We're talking about like rapists, pickpockets, right? Burglaries. You talk about abuse.
Yes.
About abuse from another individual, which
Yeah.
was kind of shocking in here, and all different ways to you understand what you're talking about, but then how you kind of tie it all together into this intuition thing on.
Yeah.
Like you walking down that long hallway that was dark, and there was a guy at the end with the tattoos, and you said in the book that you felt very uncomfortable walking towards him, and you weren't really sure, and then you got in there and there was a bunch of Nazis giving a concert or something.
It wasn't exactly Nazis, but it was. And I got to be careful, obviously, what we're saying here on the net. But I've worked in a lot of things in the past that have been organized crime, if you like, and things that I worked with, and no matter whether it's a murderer or some kind of criminal or anything that's there, they're always going to give out this energy, this subtle energy. And you can feel that, you you go into a place and you feel uncomfortable about something. And that's your intuition starting to warn you that something's not right. And I was in situations in the past where I was in a lot of dangerous situations, and I could feel the difference in the energy. And at one point, there was one thing that I can remember that if I hadn't used my intuition, I wouldn't be here today to talk.
Right, and you also were taking a course on this to learn about the intuition with your wife now. But was that course based on the intuition? I forgot. No. Oh, okay, that was on.
When I met my wife, I went on. I already lived a very spiritual life. From my uncle was a monk, as I said. Last time we spoke. I spent time in the monastery with monks and nuns and priests and developing the spirit, and then I was in the military and I came out, and then I did undercover work and various different things, and I always had that spiritual outlook, and I never really felt that I was home. It almost like I was trying to put a circle in a square peg in a square hole and it wouldn't fit, right? Or trying to put a triangle in a square hole. It just didn't fit wherever I was. And as I was developing spiritually and I had an experience with spirit, and my father, from a woman who told me years before I even met my wife Jill, that I was going to have a visitation. I was going to actually receive a sign from the other side, and I did have that from my father, and it frightened the living daylights out of me. And then so when I looked into that more and I started to learn a lot more about it, I came across this card, and this card was my mum, Joanne, Sarah Pugsley. She was ready to, she was teaching courses in psychic development, and it's a little business card, and I kind of thought, all right, and in for a penny, in for a pound, that's quite interesting. And I'll take that card, and I'll maybe go in that course. And then that was it. I went on the course. And,
you did very well on that course.
I did very, very well. It was a very hard course because she's quite a taskmaster, to be honest. And my wife, I like to liken my wife to, she took a piece of coal and she found a diamond inside of it. And that's what she did. She basically took me as a piece of coal and she turned me into a diamond, and she made me the medium that I am today. And she helped me. I mean, I wrote that book. Obviously, we were together when I wrote that book, but she helped me when I was writing that book as well. When I had a publishing deal, and there was a lot of things I had to go through and learn. And my wife, I will say, has always been my greatest teacher. I've had many teachers in life, and I've had many teachers that I follow, and some teachers that still teach me from beyond,
Right.
Even today.
Right.
But my wife has been my greatest teacher, and so she was the one that stood by me and kind of pushed me into going and teaching and doing what I needed to do. And when I started, helping oil companies and doing these courses and helping and teaching intuition and stuff, I could only do that because, yes, I had all the skills as a martial artist. Yes, I had all the skills at the time, understanding security and all that kind of things. But my wife helped me with the spiritual skills and the intuition and understanding the psychic skills. And she is and always will be my greatest teacher.
That's absolutely fantastic. What a fantastic story too. Just absolutely fantastic. Now, okay, when you realized that you could no longer be a bodyguard, was that because you were studying the spiritual side of it and you couldn't take that energy anymore?
Yeah, it was kind of like that. I came out of that side. That part of my life had been long and gone before I had met Joe. And it just didn't fit me anymore. But I worked in nightclubs and things like that because I went through some dark nights of the soul myself, and I suffered from, and I lost my father when he was young as well, and I didn't really grieve him, and there were so many things in my life that happened that I suffered a bit from PTSD, and so that was kind of past. And that had gone, and to me, that story had been, I was leaving it behind, and I was finding out who I was. Okay. I was finding out, who is Jock?
Right.
What am I doing? Where am I? I remember when I was back in the monastery and wanting to be a priest and going for the priesthood and things like that, and always having this spiritual attraction, the magnetic attraction, but not knowing where I fit. Right. And so I was slowly and surely finding where I was fitting, and meeting Joe, meeting my wife, it was all starting to come and make sense, and everything was starting to come together, and I think then my journey had only really began, because what I'd done before, whether the stuff I learned as a bodyguard or the stuff I learned in the military or even in martial arts or nothing else does not compare to the life that I have now with my wife, because it's a forever developing spiritual journey.
Yeah, okay, forever developing spiritual journey. I think that's what most people need to know. I think that's important. You just said those words because they're always looking for the magic.
And not realizing the magic is inside of them, and that magic that you might not understand now, it can keep you alive.
Right. Okay. By what do you mean? I'm not sure.
Well, you see, at the end of the day, what people maybe call magic, or what's inside of them, is their inbuilt intuition, it's their inbuilt psychic abilities, it's their inbuilt divinity, it's the divinity that's within them that keeps them connected to the spirit, keeps them connected to all that exists. And, when you understand that, and you understand that energy, when you understand that process, that gift that you have, that connection to a divine source, is what will keep you alive in the face of danger. Whether you're going out shopping and someone targets you, whether you're a woman walking down the street and there's a rapist, there's someone. There's part of that book, if you remember, where I did a lesson with the girls that were from the oil company that run the course.
Yes.
And taught them how to understand the difference and discern their intuition from an intent, from a bad, evil intent. And so if you can learn to distinguish and discern of, what doesn't feel right in your soul, it's going to keep you alive. It's happened with, soldiers in Afghanistan, for instance. I've had, I remember one story that was told to me where the soldier he just didn't feel right. And he was supposed to go down one particular point, and he decided not to because there was something just not stirring in his soul. And then he later found out that there was, if he'd have gone down there, they'd have been dead, because there was snipers, or they'd set up an insurgent attack, or something that was ready. The intelligence came back that he would not survive. And so him changing his mind at that last minute probably saved not only him, but saved the men that he was serving with. And cops, cops use their intuition all the time. They just don't realize it. You can, and there's so many people, and especially females, that can feel vulnerable, that sometimes that little change in their being uncomfortable in their energy can probably save them from disaster.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I mean, this is, tell me how somebody, okay, like I know my intuition when it says, like, I'll just give you an example. Last week, normally I go to a meditation class on Sunday. Something just kept saying, don't go. And I didn't understand it because it would be like me, I really enjoy it. I love going.
Yeah.
It helps me out. I get a healing.
Yeah.
And I do a meditation with a group, which I really like. And something just kept telling me no, and I kept fighting it. And I finally just said, okay, I'm not going. Because I knew that if I did, something was going to happen. And it could have been the car wreck. It could have been who knows what. But I knew it wasn't going to be good. So I did something else, which I ended up helping another person at another store, helping her buy materials for spirituality that I just went to on the side. So it ended up being better because I was giving back. So how can somebody learn to develop their intuition?
Well, see, here's the thing, it's noticing the subtle change in something. So let me give you a very simple example. There's nothing to do with the psychic abilities at the moment. But let's say you're running a bath and you put loads of hot water in, and you put your hand in and you think, oh, that's burnt, that's too hot. So you start to put cold water in, and what happens is you put your hand in and you start to feel very subtly the change in the temperature. You start to feel that it gets more comfortable. You start to feel that it's no longer burning you, but you're starting to feel that coldness is coming in and starting to balance that out. That's a bit like your psychic ability or intuition, right? It's being able to decipher when something's too hot or too cold, or when it's just right. That's a very simple analogy to give you. And so it's understanding the intricacies of subtle energy and being able to discern what is coming from your being, your inside, coming from your deep in your soul and your spirit, to what is driven by either your ego or external circumstances. That's
the key right there.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to be able to discern that subtle energy. And so there's a lot of people that will say they're psychic, but they're not necessarily really in touch with the real energy that can, that's subtle, that changes, that they can discern. Everybody can have a level of intuition. Everybody has a level of intuition, but not everybody will develop it to a really strong level, right? Because some people were born to play the piano and can absolutely play a symphony, and then you and I can go and just play chopsticks, because that's all we know. But it doesn't mean that we can't sit and play on the piano, right?
Right.
So it's the same with intuition and psychic ability. You can develop it. So because we can only play chopsticks, if we went to that same person that could play a symphony, we might never play his symphony, but he can teach us to play way beyond chopsticks and to maybe play different tunes.
Right.
And so we think about that we can learn anything we want to the capacity that we can take, right? So we can learn to harness our intuition even by just the way that we live our life. Right. By living our life a clean life, by being more mindful in the moment, by being more mindful and present of a state of mind, of being more mindful of other people. And then, it's not all about learning how to read tarot or learning how to utilize pendulums or crystals. It's about knowing yourself. It's a great thing in scripture and the Bible, man, know thyself, know yourself. And so if you know who you are as a divine being, you can learn to discern. And that's really important, is learn to discern.
Okay, if you're completely unconscious, okay, and you're not awakened, if you want to call it. I mean, I think that term is just a little too much. But let's just say someone's listening to this and they're just going, well, what can I do? I mean, is there some?
Yeah.
I mean, I know we talk about meditation. I talk a lot about meditation. A lot of people in all of these books that I do and all these interviews, most of them talk about meditation. And I have some people that refuse to do the meditation. And I'm like, try it for 1 minute, start breathing 3 times a day, whatever. And they don't want to do it. Is there a process? I know that you were into meditation. I know you are. I know
Absolutely.
I am. And I've learned a lot from you on different aspects of the negative side of spirit, demons, and things like that. Yeah. But what kind of ideas or what could you give them to maybe start their journey?
Okay. Well, if someone is really like your people that talk to you that don't like meditation, is to say that's okay. If you don't like meditation, that's fantastic. You don't like meditation and you don't want to jump into it, you don't have to. But here's how they can develop themselves without having to go into that whole cliche of having to meditate and do all that stuff.
Okay,
right?
Great.
They can learn to live in the moment without meditating. They can, what I like to say to people is learn to listen to the silence. And what I mean is not necessarily going inside meditating, sitting with a kaftan, sandals on, music on, incense burning. But just getting to the point where they see beyond the material, where maybe they're in the shower and maybe they're just enjoying a shower and all of a sudden they just shut their eyes and they say a prayer and they just stand in the shower and enjoy that moment. That's them starting to learn to meditate without them even thinking of meditating, right? Because the problem is we put such here's the thing I teach my students. Meditation is simple in its difficulty and difficult in its simplicity, right? Okay. That means that we put too much focus on what it should be rather than about how we feel about it in ourselves. And the reality is that it's simple, but we make it difficult because of expectations. And the expectations are normally drawn out of other people's expectations or perceptions of what they think it should be.
Exactly.
But if I sit with someone outside and I say to him, hey, he's not into meditation, I say, hey, just check that tree out there. Look at the tree. What do you see about the tree? And he just sits and stares at the tree, or he goes and he turns and says to me, Jock, that tree's really beautiful. I say, yeah. And then I say maybe something like, well, imagine what that tree's gone through in life. And then all of a sudden he goes quiet and he's thinking, oh yeah, and he's starting to think about what the tree's gone through. He's starting to train his mind in meditation, he just doesn't know it.
Right. That's very
interesting.
That's an interesting concept.
It's about being aware of your surroundings and appreciating the different aspect of them. Like looking at a flower and not even thinking about meditation, but how beautiful it might be, and then just going into it. I tell people to go into the vision that you see. So if you're sitting outside and you're sitting on a chair and all of a sudden you see lightning and things in the sky, you can just look at it, or you see the tree, or you see a plant, or you see a flower. Or one of the things that I did ages ago, I kind of meditated by watching an ant. Because as I'm watching the ant's wandering around, and I'm training my mind to focus, right? And that's really what meditation is. Even when we go through, I've got a beautiful meditation that I give out to so many people, right? It's free. And it's helped thousands of people all over the world. But what it does is it helps them to focus and to raise their vibration and to understand the vibration as I talk them through a journey. But the reality is, true meditation is going into the silence and basically hearing nothing but your thoughts. Or going into the silence and being able to connect with the divine. When I take you through a visualization, remember that the only thing that we're doing in a visualization is training your mind to focus.
Right.
So if you're not used to sitting and meditating and you don't want to do that and you don't want to be involved in that whole thing, you can train your mind and focus just as if you're reading a book, or you're watching an ant, or you're watching a spider in the web, and you're focusing on it. You're going into a silent practice of focusing on a vision.
Okay, so isn't that like being like the power of now? Like
yeah, it's like being aware of the present moment, right?
Of the present moment. Okay, so.
But without putting any kind of new age spin on it, or without putting any kind of that idea where maybe somebody don't like that sort of thing, they can be aware in the present moment of just holding a child in their arms. Okay. The reality is, though, is that people meditate more than they think. They just do not have an awareness of it.
Wow. Okay, I've never heard that before. Okay, I've heard of like the power of now and being more focused and, looking around you and being more focused on, I don't know, that guy's book who wrote The Power of Now. That was just too much for me. I couldn't even finish the book. It was just, it just.
Eckhart Tolle.
No, Eckhart Tolle, yeah.
Yeah.
No, thanks. That definitely didn't work for me. But, so it would be more like being mindful than just you.
Yeah, it is mindful, and the example of Eckhart Tolle is great. Actually, you bringing it up because here's what I can like you said. There's people that that don't like meditation. Okay, so there's people that love Eckhart Tolle's position. They love what he says, and then there's people that don't. That maybe you can get into it. And here's the thing: that's okay. That's all right. That is the beauty of being different, right? That's the beauty of learning in your own way. And so we don't have to espouse the right way or the wrong way. There's only your way.
Right.
To learn something. Even if I teach mediumship, there's a certain skill, there's a certain practice, there's certain things that we do to be able to connect or to be able to learn that. But you're going to find your own footing. If you and I are walking on a path zone, right? And we're walking on a forest path and it's beautiful. You're not going to walk the same way as me. You're not going to walk in the same footstep I walk. You can walk the same direction, but ultimately you're different to me. Mm-hmm. You're lighter than me. You're smaller than me. Right. Your feet are smaller than me. You will be different, but we can go the same journey in the same direction, but feel it in different ways.
Right, because we're each individuals.
Absolutely. And so someone that doesn't like meditation, there is a million ways of you developing that without having to go into that whole expectation of what you should have in meditation.
Right, exactly. Okay, because what I've done is that, if I get a book and they're talking about meditation and I'm trying the process or whatever, I realize that normally I'm all into it. I'm like, okay, I'm going to try this and I'm going to do it. And then all of a sudden I go, wait a second, this isn't working for me. Yeah. So I take little pieces of everything I'm learning from all these different people I interview or they send me their book. And I kind of come up with my own, visualization, meditation, or whatever you want to call it. And now I think there is, I wanted to ask you about this, and this kind of may be off the subject. In the middle of the brain, is there actually a spot that is, because you're so scientific, that connects more with the subconscious and all of that? Have you, or was that in your book, or where did I get that?
Yeah, from? If we're looking at the science of things, I mean, we understand. See, you've heard of the third eye, okay? So the third eye is that it's exemplified in understanding the chakras and stuff,
Right.
And on a base level, we learn about 7 chakras, right?
Right.
But in reality, if we looked back at some of the ancient teachings in Asia, you find out that there's way more than 7 chakras.
Yeah.
There's over 100. There's like 140. There's loads, right? But we don't do it. We just take the basic from what has been westernized to understand. But if we're looking at the connection between the brain, if you like, and I mean, do I believe this 100%? No, I think it's a small aspect. It's a small grain of sand in the desert, the reality, but it exists. And so the pituitary gland is what they would look at in the brain between, you know, the gland up there. And I'm not a doctor or anything, obviously, but the pituitary gland is where they say is the seat of the connection to consciousness. And there's been a lot of studies, there's been a lot of scientific studies, and I can't remember off the top of my head some of these studies, but you know, I do have access to them. There's a lot of studies of the pituitary gland and consciousness and the open and upper consciousness and things. And that is where the whole idea of this third eye comes from. It is the understanding of the mechanics of the pituitary within the head space, within the, I don't want to say the mind because I don't believe the mind's in the brain, but within that brain and head area, that's where it comes from. And so it's not an aspect that, I think there's an aspect of the brain, I don't know what it is. I know we've got the medulla oblongata, the cerebellum, and different other areas. But I would equate what people understand in layman's terms as to be the pituitary gland that is the gateway to consciousness.
Right. Now, okay. And then I've always learned, okay, this is what I learned, is that you get to a state, and let's just say you were meditating for a long time, just to kind of give these people a little bit of an idea of where this could go, that you get to a state where you have no thought. And it's, for me, my head kind of swirls in a circle, but I have no thought whatsoever. Is that what you tried to achieve as a monk when you did meditation? Is that what we're trying to achieve if you are into meditation?
Well, here's the thing to understand. If we're talking about, you know, when I went to the monastery and I lived with monks and things like that, and their form of meditation is prayer. They would pray. They would say the rosary, or they would pray, or they would contemplate on the sufferings of Christ, or they would consider. That's a form of meditation. Prayer is a form of meditation, really. And so you're trying to get in. Of course, the Buddhists are trying to, or the samurai, if you like, or in Japan, in Budo, they try to get to a concept of no mind. No mind means because you're becoming aware of too much around you. You want to have no mind so that you're connected to the ultimate source, ultimate divinity. And so the Buddhists, when they're meditating as well, and they've been mindful in the practices, they're trying to get to a point of no mind and no thought. So there's total stillness. But the reality is that we may get there, we may experience it in one fleeting moment. But because of who we are spirits having a human experience. In that human experience, it is nigh on impossible for us to maintain that. And we don't, so we're always striving to get there. We're always striving to try and get to that no mind point, or that mindful practice, right? But the reality is that even if to experience in a fleeting moment, it won't be there. It's only temporary. Because our minds are constantly filled. Like you said, your mind is swirling. Right. And then people go off meditation because their expectation is, well, I should have no mind. I should be going into meditation, have no thoughts, and have amazing epiphanies. And that's not really how it is. Right. You should learn to love the monkey mind. You should learn to love the messiness that's in your mind, because it's a part of who you are. And it's a part of understanding your ego self, and it's a part of trying to continually strive to be better in your development of your mind power, or the development of your soul. And so we get upset because our minds are so busy in meditation, but if we learn, and my wife taught me a great lesson many years ago. I just couldn't, I wasn't going deep in my meditation, and I would get so upset because I wasn't feeling talking to my spirit guide. I wasn't feeling the connection. My mind was messy and everything else. And she let it be. If the thought's coming in, just think of it as a balloon that just goes out or a cloud that passes.
Right.
Just let it be and stop judging the process and just enjoy it. When I got to that point of acceptance of how my mind was busy and just allowing it to be, my mind became quieter as an aspect to that. It started to develop and become quieter because I had no expectation and I wasn't pushing for it.
Right.
I was just letting it be.
Right. So just don't really think about it. Don't think of what it should be. Don't do anything.
Just let it be and enjoy
let it
it.
be and enjoy it. Now, I know that you also, I mean, they've done testing in this book. You did some scientific testing that they talk about in this book, and that there is a sixth sense, and
Yes.
it's been proven scientifically.
Yes, it has. There's many. I mean, some of the greatest scientists out there. Russell Targ that was involved, in PSI research for the Stargate program. You've got Dean Radin, who's an awesome scientist who's heavily involved in psi, which is understanding of the intuition, the sixth senses. Many studies that prove the existence of even telepathy. And to be honest, and we've got a great in our magazine Paranormal Daily News. One of our editors, our science editor, is brilliant at coming up with a lot of these science articles based on science in the PSI. And so, if you're interested in that thing, jump onto Paranormal Daily News and read some of those articles, because that'll give you a good broad idea and understanding of the reality of psychic ability and intuition. And it exists, it's there, it's part of everyone, and it's there to be used to serve us in this reality rather than to hinder us.
Right. So, I mean, I just wanted to bring up that that's in there too, that it's been proven. So it's going, oh yeah, come on. And then, and then at the end of the book, I find it interesting because you have like remote viewing. You have some stuff about that. And a couple other things ESP and telepathy, psychokinesis. So you talk about all those different things. Now, just give a few examples of some of the things that you talk about and why you would talk about that.
So in the book, there's everything from kidnap prevention to abuse to using your sixth sense to keep you alive when there's danger around. But it goes into the whole mechanics of it to understand psychic ability. And I bring a lot of, it would be great for me to say, yeah, I'm Jock and this is right and you should take this on board. You're not going to. But if I come and say, Dale Graff, who was a physicist that worked with this organization, and they've tested it, and here's their report. And then if you understand, Russell Targ and all these people, and here's their report. If I can back up the claims with science, then you can take both aspects. You can take the spiritual, you can take the scientific, and you can make it one. And you can make it one in your life. And so it's important when you delve into the powers of the sixth sense, it really is about the practical application of psychic ability in your everyday life to keep you alive, to keep you safe, to help you become more successful in your life and business. It is a book that will open your eyes to the potential that you have inside of yourself.
Right, exactly. And I think it's good because it's kind of interesting. I think it's kind of like baby steps.
Yeah,
It's
and
like-
it is. It's to understand it, baby steps. You can't just jump and fly.
Yeah, well, I mean, some of these
You've got to get
books,
wings.
you know, some of these books, they go so far out there that, you know, it's like, okay, you know, the cosmos or whatever they're talking about. But then they basically don't have any scientific data. And like you said, they talk about, you know, there's only 7 chakras and whatever else.
I wanted to bring that into a practical application. I wrote that book so someone could pick it up and could immediately put it into practice in their life,
Right.
rather than having to get misunderstood or misunderstand or get confused and go into deep consciousness aspects and go into the whole universal application. I just want them to read a book, learn the tools, apply them in their life, and to change their life for the better. And that's what Powers of the Sixth Sense is about. It is a practical application of utilizing your psychic ability in your life, and from the moment you read the book, you can put it into practice immediately.
Right. So the great thing about it is that you bring up the fact about, you know, being kidnapped, let's just say, or anything like that. So, and you know, then how to apply from there. And so it's easy for someone to understand because they know about that. Okay.
Yeah, I'm bringing up practical applications, everything from rape, from abuse, from robberies to you know, terrorist plots and everything else. And also remember that some of the examples, you know, I've used psychic ability in my life to stay alive. I've taught it to corporations, oil companies, military personnel. It works, and if you can learn a tool that's going to keep you alive in life and help you to develop your life even more, then why not use it? And it's coming from real application. It's not coming from dream state or desire. It's real application in the real world.
Right. So that's why I love the book so much. So, Jock, we can find this, of course, on your website. And
sure.
That's jockbrokus.com.
Yeah.
And then we can find this book where I bought it was on Amazon.
Amazon, you can get it on Amazon, yes.
And you got The Deadly Departed,
Yep.
The Do's and Don'ts and Dangers of the Afterlife Communication. That's his real big book right now.
That's the big book. And then
the big book.
I have my other one is the Book of Six Rings, which is spiritual lessons from the martial arts.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, I've written, I'm on my 5th book now.
Okay, so why don't I know any of this?
I only pointed to the ones that you were interested in.
I was supposed to know all this stuff. Now, what do I get? A new surprise? I gotta order 3 more books now?
Look what you've done, Jock.
Yeah, and I'm writing a 5th one at the moment, which is so. Yes.
Oh
so
my God.
The ones that are on my site are the ones that I am especially proud of, that people can get real life application from, and spiritual knowledge, wisdom, and real life application. So they can go on my site. They can connect with me on Instagram as well, at Spiritual Medium, and ask any questions or anything they want. And they can find out. I've got a new website getting built at the moment, so I'm going to have all my events and things up there. But yeah, they can connect me, and if they've got a question, they can reach out to me as you did, and I'm happy to teach. And of course, I've got the YouTube channel, which has got 100 and odd different videos on there where I openly teach and help people.
Yeah, actually, I knew you were big time, and I thought, what do I have to lose? Can I interview you?
I loved your passion, and that's why I did it. So I kind of choose my videos. So I don't go on many of them, but the ones that I do go on, I do like and enjoy. And your passion was what really. Your passion for everything that you do is amazing. I love it, and so that's why I decided to do it.
Thank you so much, but everybody, don't forget, he's got that YouTube, okay, and you're under Spiritual Medium on the YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube. Yeah,
Jock
YouTube
Brocus.
is
Jock
yeah.
Brocus.
Jock Brocus Medium,
Right, okay.
and my Instagram is at Spiritual Medium. Those are the two places where you'll get me more.
Right. So if you want to watch any fantastic videos, and if you're into paranormal, okay, like I am, Paranormal Extraction, even though I've branched out from there, I may have to change my name, but that's going to be kind of hard to do. I think people want,
You can't.
I'll confuse everybody.
No.
I'll confuse them. But if you're into paranormal, Josh has got some really great workshops and stuff coming up, or seminars,
Absolutely.
or and you can also learn a lot about that in Deadly Departed. Okay, so this isn't just about the afterlife. This also will teach you quite a bit to where it might scare the socks off you, and you won't be an investigator anymore. Okay, well, it's been a pleasure. Is there
Thank
anything
you.
else that you'd like to say about your books, or did we
No,
cover?
you know what? I think I've said enough. You've said enough about my books, but I would just like to thank you and thank your listeners for listening to me and having me on again. And you know, for those of you out there that follow Zoe, she really is a passionate exponent of what she does, and I'm absolutely delighted to know her. And I wish you guys the more success than ever. And actually, end of 2022 to 2023, I will be coming to Zoe's area and I'll be teaching a workshop, and you can catch up with her on that
Yes.
for the future, and we'll be having lots of fun for that as well. So
Oh
Zoe,
my
thank you
God.
for having me on.
Awesome.
And again, love your passion,
Okay.
love what you stand for, and thank you to all your listeners for listening. God bless.
Yeah, God bless. Thank you so much, and thank you.